Have you ever thought that breathing is more than just taking oxygen in? Do you know that conscious, intentional breathing can transform your life from managing anxiety and improving sleep to elevating athletic performance and finding clarity in the midst of chaos? So, how do you breathe? And how can you achieve better breathing? Join me after the intro for a conversation with a very special friend with whom we will answer this and many more questions. Breathe in, breathe out. Let's go. Hi, I'm Rossana D, and this is Forgive and Thrive, a podcast where we explore what thriving in life means and how we can achieve it, irrespective of our past, current condition, and expectations that those around us or society in general may have. Let's go. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. Breathing is a normal function for us, so normal that in fact we often do it without thinking. Inhale, exhale, repeat. But breathing is so much more than a mechanic action. Breathing means life. A newborn whale is the first breath. The passing of someone is when they exhale their last breath. And we live breathing every single day in between, totaling an average of more than 23,000 breaths every single day. Nonetheless, the importance of breathing has never been particularly mainstream or a talking focus until very recently, when the pandemic hit the world like a storm and reminded everyone that without breathing, there is no life. Pandemic aside, the power of breathing has been well known to and exploited by many mental health therapists and their clients, meditation fanatics, and athletes. But can it also serve well everyone else, like you and me? So today we want to discuss about the power of breathing, and in particular, the power of deep intentional breathing, what it means, what it can do for us, and how we can do it in a mindful way. And we are joined in this conversation by our guest, Lee Davy. Lee is an inspirational author, creator, speaker, retreat host, breathwork specialist, and leader in global health. He is the co-founder of Connected Community, co-steward of the Unified Alliance, co-owner of Imaloa Institute, founder of the 5D Breathwork, and co-creator of Breathwork Atrium. Lee has worked with clients one-on-one and with groups all over the world for more than 20 years. He shares his voice, story, journey, passion, and compassion to support others in their journeys, should they ask for assistance, to fully understand and embrace their highest selves, beyond all illusion. Hi, Lee. Welcome to the Forgive and Thrive show. Thank you so much for being with us and taking the time for us today.
Hi, Rosanna. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction and for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
I'm very excited because, as I said, breathing is something that we do automatically, but actually there is much more than that, right? So I'm really excited to start this conversation. But before going into the deep intentional breathing, which is the main topic of today's episode, I want to know a little bit more about you, and in particular, the journey that brought you to discover the power of deep intentional breath work.
Thank you. My journey, unbeknownst to me at the time, started when I was about 13 years old. That was the first time I remember asking questions about, who I was, why I felt the way that I did. I dealt with anxiety for a really long time, just had panic attacks and just kind of felt like I was alone, like I didn't fit in, that there was no real truth that, what I was being told or, taught in school. It didn't resonate. And so I started, of course, with the physical, played hockey at a young age, and then started weight training. And there was a program called The Body for Life. And it was a 12-week body transformation program. And I wrote the author, his name was Bill Phillips, at the time, at 13 years old. Essentially, it said, I've got this fire inside to do more, to be more, to help people. Like, I don't know what it is, but the challenge that you put together, it looks cool, but it's more than that. Maybe you can mentor me or give me a job or something like that. And of course, he never responded. But that was the first time I remember being like, who am I? What is this? How can I actually feel comfortable in my own skin? Where is the truth? And ever since then, it's been kind of falling forward and putting what I like to think of as the pieces of my puzzle together, the mind, body, spirit aspects of who I truly am, and finding those pieces and just feeling a little bit better with every piece that I was able to add, and just like any puzzle, when you have all the pieces, you begin to clarify the picture. I feel like all of us, we're so much more capable, we're so much more powerful than we've ever been led to believe. But if you don't have all the pieces to your puzzle, then it's really, really hard for you to see that, and to expand into not only who you truly are, but what you're truly capable of.
It makes sense.
Beautiful
Beautiful.
journey.
So, where breathing or breath work came into that journey, how did you discover it?
That was a more recent tool, like the last 7 years, 6, 7 years. I actually had a friend who's trained with Wim Hof, and he took me through a session. And I remember my arms kind of seized up, my hands seized up. It's a process known as tetany. When the oxygen binds to your red blood cells. And we only did three short rounds, but I had that happen, and lightheaded and tingling sensations, and for me, as soon as I find a tool or like a piece of my puzzle, I do my best to throw myself into it and really become the embodiment of it. And it was that way with the breath. As soon as I felt that, I'm like, oh, okay, this is one of my tools, and uh, I've missed very few days since then, and I really just started to play with it, and play with my own variations and versions, and speeding it up and slowing it down, and different holds, and through that process, the 5D method was born, um, and now it really is my favorite tool, because of just how powerful it is. I look at it as a medicine. It really is a medicine, and as you mentioned from the outset, it's the one thing we can't go without, and it's the first thing that we do when we're born into this world, and the last thing we do when we leave it. So the importance, the neurophysiological benefits, the ability to bring peace to our minds, and coherence to our brains, and really to connect with ethereal substance, that all oneness, that not only is a part of us, it's outside of us, it's inside of us too, and so when we're able to shut off the thinking mind, we're able to connect more deeply to that, and it's a really beautiful, powerful process.
So, you already mentioned one of the possible advantages of having a deep intentional breathing, which is really connecting with our own self. What would be the others? What are the other benefits of having a routine with deep intentional breathing?
So just from the neurophysiological standpoint, we're because it's a cyclical, deep, intentional breathing, and we're really filling the diaphragm up, and we're beginning to manipulate and play with the carbon dioxide and CO2 levels, um, and and so what we're doing is we're actually lowering the carbon dioxide levels, and we're increasing the oxygen within the system. Now, typically the oxygen sits around 96, 97%, like our saturation. So it'll go up to 99%, but because we're dropping the carbon dioxide levels and reducing that, we're really creating a like an alkaline, oxygen rich environment, and we're decreasing the acid in the environment, and if we did nothing else, if nothing else happened, that would be enough, because disease can't live in that type of environment.
Mm.
But that's not all that happens. I mentioned the tetany. So when you do the cyclical breath, and then you do a hold on the exhale, your CO2 levels are building back up in the system, but your oxygen within is no longer free floating. That's what and when it actually binds to your red blood cells. Now your cells and your stem cells and all of that sort of thing, they actually don't really like oxygen, which sounds weird to say, but so they're starting to recycle and repair. So you're starting to regenerate the cellular machinery. The thinking mind begins to shut down after a round or two, so you're not kind of all over the place still and in the mental machinations thinking about all the things that you have to do. It's like, you're able to relax and calm that. You're able to move into the parasympathetic side, the rest and digest state of being, so that you're not in that stressed state all the time. More coherence comes over to the brain. Um, we're creating more mitochondria, so the powerhouse of the cell, or what generates our energy. It creates something called mitogenesis, right? So if you're doing this on a regular basis, you're going to have more energy on a regular basis. The microtubules, the little hair-like fibers, like a skeletal kind of a scaffolding to the cells, they actually hold on to like old energy, old, like more kind of density, and it actually slows down their rate of vibration. So you're able to actually liberate the stored energy from them, so they oscillate and they vibrate much faster. So your cellular communication and ability to transfer waste products and water and all that sort of thing picks up. And the microtubules, they're actually responsible for emitting light, but when they slow down and they're kind of gunked up, they don't emit as much light. So there's so many beautiful things, and that's without even going into the pineal gland. Once we activate the pineal gland, there's a whole other cascade of chemistry that happens, and then it switches on and it starts to connect to the unified field, which I spoke to a little bit earlier. So there's so many profound benefits from just taking 10-15 minutes every day to breathe.
Yes, I explored a little bit the power of breathing, because a few years ago I burned out, and since then I've started be affected by anxiety and sometimes panic attacks, and the only really non-medical solution that I have for that is breathing. And I realized how much shallow breathing can affect my symptoms and my anxiety on that. So thank you for stressing that out. And if we want to, if we look around and we start to explore all the panorama of breathing and breath work, can be quite confusing. There are so many techniques. There are so many, you mentioned Wim Hof before, but there are so many other techniques. Where do we start? What is, I don't know, the easiest perhaps technique that you can suggest?
You don't have to have a degree or anything like that. It's, and as I said, I just started playing with it. I had one session, and that's the frame of mind. If you go into it with, like, just play with it. Put your hands on your stomach, and just make sure that you're breathing fully in. And when you breathe fully in, your stomach's gonna expand, and then when you breathe out, it's gonna contract, right? And most often we're so used to breathing up here, and you mentioned it earlier too. That kind of short, shallow breaths in the chest, and even when you're doing that, it's really hard not to feel that anxiousness. So if you just close your eyes and put your hands on your stomach and just take those full deep belly breaths, even 20 breaths, like less than 5 minutes, you're going to feel different. You're going to change your physiological state, so it doesn't take very much. Now, if you want to get into multi-dimensional travel and different things like that, then obviously you're going to expand the amount of time that you would take to do a breathing session. And that's, those are my favorite sessions, because, like, once you have an experience, you can't unexperience it. So once the mind really quiets and you feel the chemistry in the body, and then you kind of disassociate with where you are and what's happening, it's like you can't it's really hard to go back to normal or business as normal once you've had that type of experience. So you know, in my sessions, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting all of the physiological benefits, and then you're able to connect. Because once that thinking mind shuts down, it's like you're able to connect so much more deeply to this unified, this infinite energy source that is all around us.
That's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about this sort of holistic perspective and how we can use breath work to sort of harmonizing body, mind, spirit.
I think I love, if you look at it as pieces of a puzzle, or even that everything is frequency, right? And obviously that's been proven. You look under a microscope and you see that everything vibrates. So if we're paying attention to the vibrations, right, and we're doing breath work, and we're you know doing detoxifications and optimizing the food that we eat and the thoughts that we think and the words that we speak, essentially we're optimizing all of the frequencies, all of the vibrations that are within and around us. And then we start to vibrate, we start to up level the frequency that we're on. So I love the idea of using as many tools and things that are available to us. So it's, yes, the breath is such a profound tool, and a catalyst for us to be able to go more easily and more deeply into meditation, as an example, right? So now you've got breath and meditation, but what happens if you add healthy eating and structured water? Then that's going to take you a little bit further. Now you decide to add movement. So from my perspective, the more pieces of the puzzle that we can add, and the more tools that we can add, I look at it as like disciplined practice. As you get disciplined with your practices, they become less about the things that you're doing, that are outside of you, and you kind of become that version of you, if that makes sense. Like, you become a healthier, more connected, more powerful version of you when you put all of these pieces together and show up for yourself day in and day out.
Lee, we live in very busy times. We are distracted all the time. Distraction is perhaps the norm. And we probably spend time in a social numbness, as I always say. We go faster and faster. Slowing down is not easy. We probably live in a sort of flight or fight mode all the time. How can all these habits that we have in going faster and faster can contribute to our stress level? And how can breathing or a routine breath work can sort of help us breaking these habits?
It's a beautiful question, and I've actually had this conversation quite a bit recently. We're preparing for our own summit in September, and you mentioned it, right? Like, society has kind of programmed us that, okay, like, I've got to probably work really hard, maybe at a job that I'm not even enjoying, and I'm going to chase this idea of peak performance in maybe that area of my life, and I'm gonna go into maybe self-sacrifice, or I'm gonna sacrifice my health, my relationships, and even my fulfillment, to chase money, because that's what we've been told to do. We've got to get the bigger house and the bigger car and the next thing, and then when that's not working, or not what we're focused on, we get preoccupied with, and I look at it as co-regulation, like co-regulating with other things, and busyness is one of them, sex or coffee or alcohol, or and we've not really been taught how to just sit and be still and be present and be with ourselves, and the breath is such a beautiful catalyst to that, because again, you do 20 breaths and all of a sudden you're like, okay, like, what was I that like, your whole state changes, right? And you're able to be more present. Now, if you do 10 to 15, 20 minutes of those cyclical breaths, you're going to go much deeper into that state, and a lot of people will say, I'm too busy. I don't have time to do that. Set your alarm 5 minutes earlier and do 5 minutes of deep breathing. It's going to change how your day unfolds, and chances are if you do 5 minutes, you're probably going to move into 10 minutes. So if you just start with the breath, if you can just commit to 5 minutes, that's going to bring you into a deeper level of stillness, a deeper level of presence in your life, right? And then you can actually start to build on it from there, and just going little by little, more isn't better, better is better, and better leads to more.
Yeah, beautiful. So I love what you're saying, because actually there is something, when we are working, for example, we get distracted all the time, we procrastinate, and it's very difficult sometimes to be in the flow, to be in the zone, right? And do the work that we are supposed to do. So do you think that breathing a little bit ahead of these sessions or work can help us to be in the flow, or to be in the zone?
Absolutely. Again, it's about coming into the present moment, and if we're distracted and we're thinking about, and going from A to B and all this stuff, it's like we're giving away a lot of our energy, a lot of our attention, and the mind becomes very distracted. It becomes very chaotic, incoherent. But when you take those pauses and you take those breaths, it's like you're beginning to shut the outside world off, and you're beginning to take some of that energy back. You're beginning to create more coherence in the mind, right? So you can imagine if you've got more coherence, and all coherence is just, like all of the neurology is working together rather than everything kind of, like, oh my God, I got all this stuff to do. Right. So if you bring more coherence to the mind in any situation, in any circumstance or interaction, all of a sudden you're going to be more present. You're going to be more, able to communicate what you need, or what you're looking for. So I would absolutely, if you can take those 20 breaths before any, situation, especially those that would normally make you feel, or induce anxiety, or feel like a stressful situation, or something like that. If you can take those breaths, you're going to show up more present.
Absolutely. I remember a few years ago, I took a one-on-one session with a coach who actually trains BBC journalists and speakers. And as a scientist, I need to present, and I'm very shy as well. So I said, well, I stand up, and then I have this anxiety, and I cannot speak at the very beginning. And the secret was breathe, just breathe. And it was so strange at the very beginning to see how powerful breathing 2-3 times before starting talking really was the trick, and really address all my anxiety. And from that moment on, I could start talking without any problem. And so I experienced the power of breathing in many different little aspects. So I really appreciate what you're saying. So Lee, you are the founder. I read it in your bio. You are the founder of the 5D Breathwork. What is it?
So as I mentioned earlier, I just started playing with it, and when I was in Vancouver, Canada, the last 6 months of 2020, we were starting to do some events, and just in my own practice in that play, I like to do my breath work after I finish at the gym. And I was really starting to lose myself. That's something I say in my sessions. Lose yourself. The known self, the self that you've come to think of yourself to be. And that's the thinking mind. And we can, when that shuts off, you begin to kind of lose track, and as I said earlier, kind of this disassociation. And then that's when you're able to really connect. That's when you're able to really expand. And so this was happening for me in my self practice, and there were 3 consecutive days where I just had this information come in, and it's like, oh, like this can be a whole course, and I didn't even have paper or pen. I wrote it down on a napkin, and that's how the 5D method was born. So it's literally just playing with the breath. I'm, as a facilitator, I am breathing with my clients. So, just like ayahuasca or like medicine journeys or anything like that, but the shaman will drink the medicine so that he or she is in the medicine with you, and they can kind of navigate that space, right? It's almost like an energetic container that you enter into. Well, the same thing happens with the breath. But if I'm just guiding and saying, okay, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, then I'm not really in the medicine with you. So I'm actually breathing while I'm guiding my groups and my clients, and so I'm actually in that same space, and kind of walking the line of still being able to facilitate, but being deep enough in the breath, in the medicine, so that I'm not thinking. I'm not thinking about what breath or what style we're going to do next, or how long the hold is, or what speed we're going. It becomes a much more intuitive flow. And then I weave in tonal activations. We've got these 12 universal energy centers that kind of sit outside of our physical form. So I'm doing the tonal activations, and then there's kind of essentially like auto suggestion that's woven in as well. So I'm guiding and breathing and toning and holding all at the same time with my clients, and every session is different, depending on the intentions of our group, and what and the people that are there.
How is a session structured?
So typically, I mean, depending on, like, if we're in person in a group, we would set the container. I'd just speak a little bit about what was going to happen, what people might expect, a little bit about what we're going to actually move through. Then I give everyone else an opportunity to share. I feel like we co-create the space. The energy is co-created to be able to share all of that and their intentions. That brings us a certain energy into the space, and we start the session. And again, it flows, and every time it's unique, every time it's different.
Lee, I mentioned before that I've been suffering of anxiety and panic attacks. And a while ago, I was looking on internet to find solutions that could help me that were not pharmaceutical solutions. And I came across a number of devices that claim to improve the way we breathe. And in particular, I found one of them that improved the exhale phase. And it really claimed to help with panic attacks and anxiety. Are they useful at all? Do we need instruments? What are your thoughts?
It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I mean, maybe if you were training for altitude, that might be beneficial, but I really think we don't need tools. We are the tool, and if you're just playing with it, you can alternate nose, mouth. You can play with the speeds, and I think just by doing that, as long as you're doing it diaphragmically, as long as you're doing it from, the stomach, then, and you're taking, those full belly breaths, we've really got everything that we need, and through that process, you're going to begin to tonify the vagus nerve, and the stomach, the diaphragm. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me to use a tool.
Seems more marketing strategies perhaps than effective stuff. Fantastic. Are there things that we should be aware or cautious with when it comes to breathing, and especially when we go into a deep breath work?
As with anything, right? You want to make sure that you're in a safe environment. I think set and setting are always really important. So it's like you wouldn't want to be doing it in water or while driving or anything like that. You want to make sure that you're stationary, probably seated on the floor or where you're able to lean back, because if you do activate the kundalini, this energy at the base of the spine, there's a potential that you could knock yourself out. So depending on the holds, I've not done it myself, but I have seen people that have really activated the pineal gland and really had an out of body experience. So that's quite possible. So you just want to make sure that you're in a safe setting, safe environment. Music's always nice to have. I like to play binaural beats, or there's all kinds of medicine music and stuff like that. So just make sure you're doing it in a safe spot.
Yes, I remember when I tried the ice bath and I had to do this Wim Hof breathing. The guide asked us to lay on the floor. It was really helpful to be on the floor, actually. So, yeah, thank you for stressing that out. Lee, coming back to you, what are you working on and what are you planning for the second half of 2023?
So I'm actually really excited right now. I've got a number of projects that are just about to launch. So September, I'm hosting 30 speakers over 3 days. It's an event that we're creating called Unleash Yourself. And we're talking about and redefining peak performance. And that's going to correlate to what I call the freedom method. And the freedom method really it's kind of my method, my journey over the last 30 years. And part one of the method is to open to new possibilities, new potentials. The idea that we're not stuck, that we really can create a new identity, a new personality, and therefore a new personal reality. And then part two of the method is to begin to activate the mind, body, spirit aspects of the self through discipline practice, and really showing up for yourself day in and day out. And when you do that, we can become the embodiment of that new identity. And this is what leads us to total freedom and fulfillment. And then there's this aspect of taking radical self-responsibility and beginning to align to and operate from the higher laws. And we really can free ourselves on every level, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, in how we show up in the world. We can take our power back. So, it really is this journey, but we're going to launch it with the Unleash Yourself. We're simultaneously launching the Breathwork Atrium, so it's essentially an academy, a membership portal where people can go and learn about the breath and do all kinds of different breathing sessions. And then we've launched Origin. We're going to be really focused on media to share kind of our collective media, whether it's podcasts like this, or I have friends that have created documentaries, or I write poetry, or been doing lots of interviews myself. So to be able to share to the collective, to say, hey, maybe you're not aware, but we really have all of the solutions. We have such a beautiful world that's being built and that's waiting for us. And so I really want to support people in realizing this, and then helping them to cross the bridge to that new world through these different type of events and practices, or technologies, or retreats, or really all the solutions are here. And so we've launched a newsletter called Coherence that will support the solutionaries in sharing their solutions, their projects, what they're working on, and essentially supporting all of us to keep a pulse on this new world that really is right at our fingertips. So yeah, super excited. Lots going on, but
all coming together
slowly but surely. Yes.
Fantastic. So if our listeners would like to get in touch with you, know a little bit more about you and the work you do, where they can find you?
Yeah, probably the best place is Instagram. So at 5D Breathwork, and also on my website,
We will put all the links in the description of today's episodes. Lee, final question. If there was one take-home message that you would love everybody to remember from this conversation, what that would be?
What's coming through is that no one is free until each are free, and all are freeing each other. Again, I think the old paradigm has us believing that that we're separate. It doesn't really matter what happens to you as long as I'm okay. And really realizing we're remembering that we are all one. I really want to invite people to first and foremost show up for yourself, because self-sacrifice is actually the opposite of noble. A noble sense of self first, and filling your cup first is the most noble thing that you can do. And if you can begin to show up first and foremost for yourself and fill your cup, and take that, maybe the idea that peak performance is just at a job that you don't like, making money to buy things that you don't get to use because you're working so hard all the time, that you can take that peak performance into every area, and you can be healthy and happy and fulfilled and connected and have incredible relationships. But it starts with the self. You've got to show up for yourself first. And then when we do, we can show up for each other more fully. And to me, that's what's going to lead us to freedom. That's what's going to allow us to cross this bridge into this new world with all the solutions that are already here for us.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. I love it. Well, I hope that this episode has provided insights and inspiration on how we can all improve our lives and relieve some of the everyday stress and anxiety by breathing better and on purpose. And I want to leave you with a quote that I found from Thich Nhat Hanh, who wrote in his book, The Miracle of Mindfulness, an introduction to the practice of meditation. He wrote, "Breath is the bridge which connects life to consciousness, which unites your body to your thoughts. Whenever your mind becomes scattered, use your breath as the means to take hold of your mind again." Lee, thank you so much for accepting our invitation, for sharing so much about yourself and your mission, and of course, for having introduced us to the power of breathing.
Thank you, Rosanna. It was such an honor, and I'm so grateful. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing to really support others in their journey. So thank you.
No, thank you. Well, we would love to know what you think about this topic. How do you breathe? Do you already have a deep intentional breathing routine? If so, let us know what the benefits are. And if you're still on the fence, well, I'm sure you can find lots of good reason to start and tips on how to do it from our conversation here with Lee. Also, don't forget to check Lee's website, to follow him on social media. You will find all the links in the description of today's episode. Join me next time when we will continue exploring inspiring and challenging situations. Because remember, we are together in this journey. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this content, subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to hit the notification bell and like this video. See you in the next one.